it's like being on a cell call. As long as you don't look down, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I completely agree with that. So we'll see if Greg pops in. For those of you who are watching the replay on YouTube, Greg is having his hair cut.
Oh, that's
boy.
nice.
Yeah.
Being the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, is he having it too? Yeah. We've got a couple of things to move into pretty quickly once we get going on the show. Top reasons people are moving. Why is it so important to be pre-approved, Randy Rocky? I sent you that in advance. There's some other stuff there that I sent Kevin. By the way, Kevin is in for Lee. Lee's having problems walking. That's why she's where she is right now. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
she gonna be okay?
Yeah. Well, do I look like a doctor?
I mean, you think about it, man. You're having trouble walking. That's not good.
It's a problem. Yeah, I know. So hopefully she's will do well. So all right, we're gonna move on. We'll move forward. All right, I'm gonna start the old clock, and then we'll go from there.
We have 2 shows today.
One show.
We have
one
2
show.
shows today.
One show, buddy boy. One show.
Okay.
That will be
all right.
That's all we need.
You said you sent me some material. I don't.
You didn't get it in the email?
Yeah.
All right. You don't worry, because we've got enough stuff. Just get close, Kev. Point your is it your phone or what are you on? Your phone or your laptop? Or?
Webcam. Is it the mic or is it the
both? I point the camera down a little bit. Yep, and that's good. And get as close as you can. That will get rid of some of the echo.
Okay.
I tell you what I did, Kevin. Although you're not on phone, I don't guess you're on the Wi-Fi. I started dialing in. It's heaven on earth.
Yeah, but his signal is strong. His problem is he's fine with other than that.
Right.
On audio. Yep.
I understand.
All right. We'll see if Greg pops better. It's fine as long as you're close to your camera, which is your microphone. The closer you are, I think the less. And you want to talk about what you've been through the past couple of weeks or no?
Not just yet. Not just yet.
We won't talk. All right. We'll talk about that later. All right.
You may mention it, but not to go into it in detail, I guess.
Okay.
How are you feeling? Everything good?
Well, yeah, for the most part, I'm about, almost 100%, but I'm going to go to cardiologists and get checked out. Some of our local folks have had a little bit of issues, fibrillations post. So I had a few issues, so I'm going to get checked out and before I go and do something stupid like try to run.
All right. Well, so we'll just touch on that just for the heck of it. All right. Stand by, folks. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you for the next 30 minutes. One of our COVID-19 shows where each of our folks are coming from their perspective, either offices or in one case, his car. That person happens to be Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. You can reach him at 645-0736. Are we en route to a lake house by chance, or just you're out driving?
Oh, no. On a route to home. And good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Also here, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys. You can reach them. They do a great job, great team of people there at 895-99000. So good to have you here, Kevin.
Hey, good morning, Bob and Randy.
And we mentioned the COVID-19 show. Do you want to explain to everybody what you've gone through the past couple of weeks?
Oh, I've had my wife and I both were fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to actually have COVID, and we're proceeding and getting through. It was a few days that were, I would say, more than unpleasant, but we managed to work our way through.
Did you have to go to the hospital, or you were able to handle it from home?
From home.
Okay. All right.
It was kind of more of an upper respiratory tract, which I think is kind of the newer thing. But like I said, it was unpleasant, but we were fortunate enough, and thank the Lord we made it through.
Yep. I am as well thankful for that, and glad you're with us. So we move forward, and the first thing up, and incidentally, a little later on, we'll be talking about a couple of things: how to get a better, stronger offer in to a bid or a bidding war if you're up against other agents and their buyers. And then, just so you know, put on your calendar for next week, how will the presidential election impact real estate? We're going to explore that. First up this morning, seller stresses. I came upon this through some folks, and I thought it was interesting. And I'm going to ask both Randy and Kevin to participate in this. In selling a home, what do you think the top items that are stressful for both the seller, really it's the seller review? So would either of you in your mind know number 1, 2, there's about 10 of them, but you know any of them? We're going to pick one.
As far as the overall stress of the process?
The process itself, right. What are the stress points?
I think just opening up your home, especially with the
Yes.
stress we're all going through, and being concerned about who's coming through and how to keep you and your family safe.
Interesting. And Brandon, you agree with that?
Yes. Number 1.
So selling a home is stressful. Virtually no one is immune. 95% of home sellers are stressed by some aspect of the process. That's according to a Zillow survey. The greatest sources of stress involve uncertainty surrounding the timing and financial aspects of the sale. So some of the things of the people polled, and there were a lot of them polled, 56% said not knowing if a home would sell within a desired time frame was among the top stress. And again, poll was started before COVID, so that wasn't included. 53% of the people polled said uncertainty about being able to sell for a desired price. So we have time frame, price, and then the third of the top three, 52%, said making improvements or preparing the home for sale were also very stressful. So those are some key points, but there's some other things, folks, that went on, and you may identify this if you've sold recently or if you're thinking of selling. Uncertainty or concern that an offer would fall through, timing the sale with the purchase of a new home, lack of control with overall selling process, not knowing if buyers were seriously interested, and that list goes on and on. And I think we can all identify, especially these folks on the call, both Kevin over at Pitt and Frank and then Randy with Swan, that the stress is there. I think the good news is that our goal as agents, loan officers, and attorneys is to try to remove or reduce the stress as much as possible. You all agree with that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I think the inventory is so tight now. If you're a seller, the stress seems to be more on the seller side. Are you going to have a home to move into? And with the inventory being fairly limited right now, that's a big concern.
Yeah, we've been talking the past number of weeks, Kevin. I don't know if you've heard about this, a reverse contingency, where let's say Randy is selling his home. Let's say we put it on the market for 200. He gets 200,000, and we counter with that contract. We say we accept the price, but our seller wants 15 days to be able to find another house before this contract it becomes enforceable. So before the clock starts. Now, granted, some buyers may say, I'm not going to deal with that, and they could either walk or counter back on it. But we were involved with a sale just recently. By the way, that background noise is Randy. I'm going to mute you for a second because I know you're driving, so you're a little quieter. Oh, say again? Hold on, I muted you. Now I can't unmute you. You need to unmute yourself. So I muted him just as he was pulling in. Looks like. So you need to unmute yourself. So if there may be some buyers who say, I just don't want to get in the middle of that. But overall, I think there are some who would say, okay, I'll take that risk to be able to have the house that I really want. So that's something I think is a big plus. By the way, Randy, you're going to need to unmute yourself because I can't unmute you. There you are. Good. So thoughts on that, Kev, Randy?
Well, I just think the main thing that most people are dealing with now is you've got quite a number of buyers out there, but as they've gone through the inventory, it has just got to the point where it is really difficult to find a home, and you're having, like you deal with this every day, you're trying to beat out other people trying to go after the same property. And in that situation, it's very difficult from a seller to have, it's always musical chairs. You don't want to be homeless for a few days, few weeks. And so that's a lot of the stress that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's where that reverse.
I love the reverse contingency. I think it's what a wonderful idea, and one I think that if this continues to be a low inventory area, that you'll see a lot more of that.
As long as buyers are willing to accept that particular caveat in purchasing a home. But I think if it's a really good home, because that's what happened with us, our seller had a really good home. The buyer was willing to put in that contingency and take it. So,
just curious, Bob, would you go through the inspections, or would you wait till that 15-day period is up before you start spending the money in the due diligence?
I think you could go either way with that, Kev. It's a good question. I think you could either do the inspections. I think the preferred way would be to hold off on inspections and everything until the seller found his new home.
Okay.
Otherwise, if he doesn't find the home, you're wasting money on inspections.
Okay.
Right? So, all right, some other things that we want to talk about is why is it so important to be pre-approved in this home buying process? That's why you turn that over to Randy Rocky, who's involved with a lot of pre-approvals on a regular basis. Why would you say the top reasons are?
Well, in this market, being pre-approved is very important. If you're not pre-approved, I don't know how, if there's a desirable home right now, how they can even have an opportunity to buy the home. You know, when the real estate agent, the listing agent, is looking at the offers, and if you don't have a really strong pre-approval from a good company, then I think that puts you at almost extinct. You're almost extinct on getting that property, in my opinion. So I cannot emphasize enough to be pre-approved. And the other thing that's becoming very prominent is, even, you know, one way or another it's covered, but seller contributions are becoming a little bit less on offers right now because it just complicates the offer in a lot of real estate agents' minds. So a lot of times the borrower is going to have to bring the down payment. Let's say it's 3.5% plus the closing cost and the escrows. We're used to the seller would help pay for that, and it's still happening. It is, but not as much as it was, because there are multiple offer situations, and for whatever reason, the realtor says, "Hey, we're just not going to go that route." Do they have the money for the closing costs prepaid and the 3.5% payment? So that puts them in like a 5.5% range for a down payment. So on a $200,000 home, rather than $7,000, now they're bringing $11,000 to the closing table right in that area. So that's something that I don't know if you're seeing that a lot too, Bob.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's a great observation that buyers are being counseled by agents. Don't ask for closing costs because you're watering down your offer and you're up against other people who might not need those closing costs, and you'll lose. Good point. Incidentally, according to a recent survey from Realtor.com, many buyers are making the mistake of skipping the pre-approval step in the home buying process. Over 2,000 active home shoppers who plan to purchase a home in the next 12 months were polled, and only 52% obtained a pre-approval letter before beginning their home search, which means nearly half of the buyers are missing this crucial piece of paperwork. It's so important because if I'm listing your home as a seller agent and an offer comes in, if we don't have a firm pre-approval letter that we think is valid, and by that I mean where the due diligence has been done. For example, Swan will do the due diligence. They'll check credit. What else will you do with your pre-approval letters? What will you do in advance, Randy?
Assets. We check assets and their actual income. You know, we check their W-2s, make sure their most recent pay stubs, make sure they're still working full time. You know, COVID, they might say, "Hey, I make $25 an hour or $45 an hour," but now they're working less hours because of COVID. So you really have to go through your due diligence. I am absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
That 52%. That 52% number, that amazes me.
That's a Realtor.com really survey. I know. Just to put a period at the end of all this, pre-approvals show homeowners that you're a serious buyer. If you, it helps you stand out when you're in a crowd, if you get into a multiple offer scenario. And I will tell you that if for some reason we get two offers on the same house, and this has happened, one has a pre-approval, the other doesn't, and they're both pretty close in terms of price and terms, we're going with the offer that has a pre-approval letter. So buyers and friends of buyers, or people, if you know people who are looking to buy a home, suggest a pre-approval letter, which will definitely help. Let's move on. We've been monitoring a variety of things over the past couple of months, and I'm not sure, Kevin, if you're up to date on evictions and where we stand. There's been movement to table evictions. Have you been up on any of the newest stuff?
Well, but actually this week, the CDC of all places, the Center for Disease Control, has basically established a nationwide moratorium on evictions. I'm not sure how the courts here locally are going to deal with that. I know that there are some in place. I know a gentleman who just this week managed to finish up an eviction before. I think the way the ruling works is it's nationwide. You can always question whether they have the authorization to do it, but it is in place, and I'm sure the local courts are probably going to abide by that unless they're instructed otherwise.
Who ends up really carrying the load at this point? Are these banks? Oh, by the way, here's Greg coming in a little late because he was getting his haircut. So for those,
let's see how he looks.
You'll see how he looks if you're watching. Incidentally, if you want to see a recap of this show on video, oh, his hair looks great. You can go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com. He's connecting to audio. We were just saying your hair looks great from your haircut. Very good.
Whew. I mean, it was a must. A must.
All right, so hold on, because we got to keep moving here because we got a lot of stuff to go over. So, Kev, this will help a lot of people, but who ends up bearing the brunt of keeping tenants in a home? And not that that's a bad thing to keep them in there, because that's great. I mean, it's an important step. But do the banks hold the mortgages not getting paid, or the people who own the homes who aren't getting money? Does that then filter down to the banks?
That are kind of stuck are the mom and pops. The bigger companies with the large apartment complexes can kind of take care of themselves, but we all know a lot of investors that own one or two single family, or they own a fourplex.
Yeah.
They still have to pay the monthly payments, even though rent is not coming in. And I think the rule that was established was if your income is $98,000 or less, or jointly $198,000 or less, and as long as you can claim that if you're evicted, you would have a fear of being homeless, that's sufficient.
Yeah.
And especially in this area, 98,000, 198 for a couple, that puts you in the higher end. So the little mom and pops that own one or two, and they rely on for their income, and if they got a loan against it, those are the people that are going to be hurting. And the local community banks that hold that paper may be hurting. So,
interesting. We'll see how this washes out. This is just basically coming down. Well, there's been talk, so let's hold on and see what happens in the next couple of weeks on that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about ways of winning a bidding war when it comes to getting your great favorite dream home. Even if you're not looking for a dream home, you may have friends, family, business associates who are looking for their dream home, and as a result, this may be helpful for you to pass on to them if they're not listening. Here with us, just joining us, my son Greg, who does our marketing, our photography, and so much more with a great look and do. Also, Randy Rocky, Swan Financial at 645-0736. Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, they do a great job, 895-9900 if you missed the beginning of the show.
We're here.
Kevin, his hair looks okay based on the fact that not like Greg. Neither of us have as much as Greg, but Kevin also just recuperating from a bout with COVID-19, so he's been in the trenches and is back out and here to say, I survived it. Yeah. And of course, you can reach me, Bob Sokoler. If you want to see what people are saying about us, head to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com or LouisvilleZillow.com. And you can reach me by cell phone, obviously, 376-5483. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, the Louisville Real Estate Show. Bob Sokoler here with you. Thank you, Barbara Corcoran. And we are desperately, as I mentioned when I was talking to Barbara, we did that via webcam, basically interview, Barbara and myself. And we're still desperately looking for homes to list and sell, because we really do need homes to list and sell. We'd sell them that quickly. So if you know of one, or you think somebody's going to be selling their home, or you want to sell, call me, 376-5483. Also here with us, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, 895-9900. Randy Rocky, Swan Financial, 645-0736. Also, son Greg, who does our marketing and photography and so much more, who is joining us as well. And guys, ladies, well, gentlemen, we should point out that there are still a lot of offers. How's business? I should point out, ask both you and Randy. Let's start with Kevin. You're still doing a lot of closings, no slowdown at this point, correct?
It's getting a little slower. It might, I know we're doing a lot of refis, and I think that system has slowed down a little bit, maybe intentionally, but it's still really good. But we know it's a little bit of slowdown.
Randy, how about you on loan apps for both refis and mortgages?
Things are really, really strong. It's the best it's ever been for us, and still strong.
Interest rates still hovering 3 above, below? Where are we as we speak?
Yes, in the 3s and 2s, depending on the product, and APR rate and NMLS number 2673. Just want to throw that out there. But yeah, yes, they're hovering around there. So it's a wonderful time for people to refinance or purchase a home.
Yeah.
They can get a lot of bang for the buck right now.
Absolutely.
Speaking of bang for the buck, I was saying, Randy, we had just closed on my personal home, and we had estimates, and one thing I love about Swan is they don't ever really overpromise. They always kind of underpromise and then overdeliver. And so I was looking at my mortgage payment, and it's literally for maybe 1,000 square feet more, just saying I'm paying $40 more a month because of where my rate was and obviously the money that we had made, but we really didn't overextend ourselves. So there's a lot of millennials like myself and people that are able to really get up in the market on a higher price point home and really have my $40 more a month, I couldn't beat it. So, I'm always very thankful to Randy when we're talking to him.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Greg. And it's happening a lot of people can upgrade $150,000, $200,000 on their home right now and have the same mortgage payment or very similar. And it's really created a lot of loans for us. Yes.
But the problem is we don't have, if you're not building, there's no homes out there to buy, as Bob was saying, and building costs are going up.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, 376-5483 is my number. I just thought I'd throw it in like Randy was throwing in his MLS number, just as a little joke there. All right, moving forward, folks, because we got a lot to talk about. Buyers are losing bidding wars. How can you win? Or if you know somebody. So one thing you need to know, make sure your agent knows about an escalation clause with a cap. Greg, why don't you go into that? You know that as we do.
So, this is something we used to harp on a lot, knowing terminology, just knowing other ways to win deals. And I'll say this is old news. If your agents don't know about this, then you probably have a problem. But escalation clause of the cap is essentially you're going in multiple bid situation. You're representing your buyer. You're going to say, we're going to pay X amount of dollars over the best bid that comes out there, up to a cap is what you want to put in there, up to X amount of dollars. What we're seeing now is we just had an offer on one of our properties that Casey had listed. I think we had 10 offers. 5 of them had escalation clauses with a cap. So it took basically next level, and you can give us a call, give Bob a call, 376-5483. You don't need to call me. And basically, and this is something our brokerage just worked on, and they use newer language about when you have, and this gets into another level, escalation clause of the cap, you have an appraisal issue, right? So the house now has to appraise for whatever bid you're putting in.
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. So
so this is all part of, this is all interconnected, but yes, but that's escalation clause of the cap in a nutshell.
So then the next thing you could do is make inspection easier, as is condition to buy the house. Kevin, explain what the problem is when you buy something in as is condition.
Well, if you buy it as is condition, that technically when you close on the property, the only thing you can go back against the seller is any type of fraud where they know or should have known about a latent defect. That rule of caveat emptor applies. So if I go and check out the house, if you've hidden a defect from me so that I couldn't find that, then the seller could be on the hook for it. But in most cases, as if I buy it, I have no right to come back against the seller. I have no right to ask for any repairs. Although You do see as is, and sure enough, you get a repair request right after the inspection comes back, in which case you all know how to address that.
Yeah, and interesting, we should point out that you can write an offer that says we'll buy this in as is, as long as we're able to conduct an inspection and withdraw our offer if we find a problem. That way, at least you're lightening the amount of hoops that the seller is going to go through, unless there's a major fire at the end of the tunnel there in the way of problems with the house safety structural. Another thing you could do is offer to limit your inspection repair requests to simply health and safety related items, then by eliminating things that might be not only cosmetic, because that
we had one, right, Bob? We had one that was we did X amount of dollars. Anything under $1,000 was fine. It ended up being a septic tank issue. That would be a safety and health issue. And so the sellers are doing, it's a lateral line thing, one of those, fun Oldham County ones. You see it all the time. But that was it, and that was all they asked for. And the sellers prepared. They knew that, and they were happy to oblige.
Randy, we're coming to you, so unmute yourself at this point. We're talking about covering the appraisal gap. And Greg got into that briefly, but basically in the offer, what would be an example of covering the appraisal gap? You feel up to answering that?
Yes. So, for example, let's say that the escalation clause, it went up to $210,000 on a house, and they accepted that it was $210,000, and the appraisal comes in for $200,000. Well, then there's $10,000 to deal with, and depending on the language in the contract, how does that handle? Do they split it? Do they negotiate it? Or how do they do it? Does the client have the extra money? Because let's say they're putting a minimum down of 3%. Does the client have the extra money for the $10,000? If the seller says, no, I'm not going to help on with the appraisal coming in 10,000 short, you're going to have to come up with the extra money if you want the home, because it's a very desirable home.
Right. So if you contract,
really,
If you,
so it's a very I'm not saying it's tricky, but it is tricky. I mean, it gets into
it can get tricky.
all
That
kinds of
offer
back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that offer I was talking about with the 10 different offers and multiple had escalation clauses, believe it or not, a standard offer with a conventional loan ended up beating out cash because the agent that was offering on cash did not know how to properly write this verbiage in, that somebody from our brokerage who has gone through many trainings, who was on the other side, ended up having amazing verbiage that was done by our broker who comes up with a lot of stuff for our industry.
Yeah.
And it was literally the verbiage that helped win out over cash, because the buyers were going to come up with a massive difference.
So the appraisal gap is important, and if you offer, as long as you've got the money to cover the appraisal gap, you're ahead of the game in the way of putting an offer together that's going to win. Also, offering a post-close occupancy agreement. Now, Kevin, this can get dicey, but in essence, looking at it from your perspective, you as an attorney can write up, and we have forms, but it's always good to have an attorney on your side writing this up, where it allows the sellers to stay in the house X amount of days at either no cost or a price per diem per day based on an agreement, but it extends the closing date, giving the sellers a little more time to move out. Correct?
Correct. And then a couple of the issues involved there, insurance issues. Usually there's a period of time under the homeowner's policy that the buyer has to move in, and they have the insurable risk once the closing occurs. Then under certain mortgage products, you're signing off that is going to be an owner occupied. If you don't take possession and occupancy of the property, you could get into some trouble with the lender, and Randy's shaking his head about that.
Yeah.
And the other issue is, and I've done this long enough, all kinds of crazy things that can happen. The liability issue. What if the couple who just sold the house decides to file for divorce unexpectedly to one of the individuals afterwards? Someone doesn't want to leave. We go back to the eviction courts being closed down. Damage, liability, friends come over, fall down. I understand that it's an effort to try to make your offer more attractive, but anything beyond a fairly short period of time can lead to other issues, and so that we typically write those up where the post-closing occupancy period is rather short. just to avoid some of those issues.
We are actually out of time. So what we'll do, there are some other things. And as we go forward in the weeks to come, we'll try to bring these to attention. We've talked about buyer love letters. There is some potential for fair housing violations. We haven't seen that. Kevin, am I right? We haven't seen those problems locally here.
No.
Nationally, there have been some cities where there are problems, and we won't go into them because we don't have the time. But down the road, we will, because I think it's important to talk about that. All right, we are out of time. You can hear the little timer telling me it's time to go. Our thanks to Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, 895-9900. They do great jobs. Also, Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. He and his team do a great job, 645-0736. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for being there. And Son Greg.
Thank you for having me, Bob.
You bet. And Son Greg does a great job, and now sports an interesting do where he's cropped the sides. And if you want to see that, if you'd like to see what Greg looks like now, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our video on YouTube. If you want to reach me anytime, 376-5483. It's Bob Sokoler. You can email me, bob@WeSellLouisville.com. Head to LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleSellersTalk.com to see and hear what people are saying about us. Folks, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. We'll see you next Sunday right here on News Radio 840 WHAS. All right, guys. Boy, they really cropped your on your sides there, Greg.
That's what I always do. No, it just looks fresh because it's, you see the sun beating down. I got this natural, beautiful genetics that you and Mom gave to me.
Enjoy your hair while you have it. Look at your screen. This is your future.
Yeah.
No. It's mother's side, and my mother's father had a head of hair till the day he died, so I'm all right.
Yep.
Right.
Hopefully.
Good stuff.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
And
All right, gang.
I have 2,000 hair plugs. And still don't have any.
They put them in Randy's ears. They made a mistake where they put those plugs. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Take
gentlemen.
care. Thanks for hopping in there.
All right,
Tim.
see you later.
All right, buddy.
All right,
Take
no
care.
problem.
Bye, guys.